Welcome back to the App Maker for Jira tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive on one particular component, which is our dynamic tables UI component. We'll be doing a deep dive on this component because it is one of the more powerful and one of the more complicated features of App Maker for Jira. It's also a very powerful component and used a lot when creating sort of dashboards and anything else where you might want to show lists of information. It's a pretty critical piece of functionality, particularly for using the data lists feature, which we went over in the previous video. This video will mostly be a lot of working in the UI component editor because we'll be creating a hard-coded dynamic table component and showing you sort of through all of the different parts of that component and how it works. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly create a dynamic table in the editor, and then we will walk through each section of how it works. So I'm in the UI components settings area. I'm going to create a new component. I'm going to delete the one that is there already. And we'll drop that in there. So this sample dynamic table is available in our documentation from the guide section and the dynamic tables tab. So you see here, it's created a basic table with 3 columns. The columns have, and the table has 2 rows. Starting from the left, we have the status column, then the issue key column, and then a summary column. And the data in this table is designed to replicate what you might see from some Jira issues if they were added to the table. Looking over here to the JSON, we'll walk through the main components of the dynamic table configuration. So we're going to skip over this top section here, which is just a tab panel, which holds a list of children, and then the first children is this dynamic table component here. The first thing that you need to configure when using a dynamic table is the column headers property. So the column headers property is a list, and it's a list of objects. Each object is what we call a column header, which basically configures how you want that particular column to work in your table. So we have a column header for status, as you can see there. Sorry, table header for status, as you can see there. We have a table header for issue key, as you can see there. And we have a table header for summary, as you can see at the end. We're going to go through this in reverse order because they are sort of the complexity of each table header is sort of it's most simple at the end and it's most complex kind of at the beginning. So we'll start from the simple end. So the simplest one we have here is this summary table header. So basically the way this works is each table header has a title property, which just says what is going to be at the top of the column. So this says, table header is summary. So you see summary at the top. And then you have what is called the value path. So each row in a table is represented by a single object. So we have this table rows property down here, which is how you pass the data in. You'll see it's a list because it has the square brackets, and it's a list of objects. So the value path is the path to the property within the row object that holds the value that you want to display in the field. So in this context, for the summary column, we're saying go to the object for each row and get the row.summary value and make that what is shown here in the table, the cell within the table. So if we go down here as an example to the hard-coded table rows, we've got row.summary is implement new feature, and you see implement new feature here. And in the second row, we see row.summary is fix critical bug, and you see fix critical bug is here. The value path property is consistent across all table headers, no matter how they're being used. They'll pretty much all include this value path property because that's how you determine what is actually going to be shown in the cell. That's all there is for this column at the end. It's very simple. It's just a header and then a path to the value. Going back stepping back to the middle column, the issue key column, you'll see here the title of issue key. We've already gone over title, so we know how that works. And we'll see here value path, which we've already gone over, is row.key. So if I go down here to the table rows, we've got row.key is PROJ-123, PROJ.123-123. except there's one extra property determined for this middle column, which is a link path. So the link path, you may be able to sort of figure out, is the path to the property in the row object that contains a link that you want that column to link out to. So it's basically how you define a hyperlink for the value. So what we'll do is, in this context, the link path is row.url. So the value you'll see is row.key, so proj-123. But what we do, because you've defined a link path, we then turn proj123 into a hyperlink, and that hyperlink will link out to whatever is defined at row.url. So it's important to note here that if this was row.issue key, that would be fine. You would just change this to row.issue key as a value path. And if this, rather than saying URL, was hyperlink, that's fine. You would just change row.url to row.hyperlink. Your row objects do not need to have any specific keys set in order for any of this to work. You just need to map the key here to the key here. And that way, these objects could be any shape you need them to be. And we'll still map them all into the table. So you've seen here now how we create a hyperlink. And if I click on that, it'll show you it's going to go link out to that Jira issue, which we've defined down here in the table rows. I don't want to go there right now, but you can see how that would work. Now, finally, we've got the status column. And now this is a little bit more complicated because this includes some conditional formatting. So the type table header, we've already gone over. The title status, we already know what that is. That sets the header for the column. The value path, we already know what that is. So row.status, if we go down here, we've got row.status in progress. So we already know what that does. Now there's no link path here. Link paths only work for text fields. They don't work for lozenge fields. And you'll see here there's a field type, which is a lozenge. Now the field type by default is text, and all of the different field types are documented on our in our documentation. And certain capabilities will only work with certain field types. So for example, a hyperlink will only work if the field type is the default, which is text. The other field type you can use at the moment is lozenge. So lozenge is what creates this kind of element here with some text, all in caps, and then a background color behind it to let you indicate some kind of status. Now, the way you control that background color is through what we call an appearance map, which lets you define conditional formatting. So the appearance map basically lets you define which values, so here, will display different appearances. So the lozenge component has a list of predefined appearances. So for example, the success appearance is this green color, and the warning appearance is this yellow color. And if you go to our components reference on our documentation and you go to the lozenge component, you'll see all of the different appearances there that can be used. So the way the appearance map works is you first define the appearance that you want to map for, so success, warning, or error. And then for each of those, you provide a list of values. And these values basically are the potential values that, if the cell has, will be colored with this appearance. So what we're saying here is if a cell has complete as the value, it'll show as success. And if the cell has resolved as a value, it will also show as success. And this way, what it allows you to do is if you're receiving data, say, from an API or from a webhook, and so let's say you've got maybe the deals table that we were working with in the previous video, and the deal could be either lost or won or closed, you may want to be able to have multiple of those statuses map to the same appearance. So maybe closed and won are both successful, but lost or stale are both, red, in which case it'd be an error appearance. So what you would do is you would set success to have two options, which is like closed or won. And you might set error to have another two values, which would be lost or stale. And what we will do is if we ever see those values, we will code them with that appearance. Any value that is not defined here in the map will show with the default appearance, which is sort of a light gray neutral color. So that goes over the basics of how to customize your cells and how to put data into tables. The dynamic table component is something that we'll be enhancing quite a lot as we move forward. But as of today, it kind of covers all the necessary requirements. But we'd be really interested to hear feedback from users around what extra functionality they would like to see in the dynamic table. Some things that we're looking at doing in the future is the ability to have sort of a button which triggers a dialogue, and that dialogue will be past all of the like the object for the row, and so you could create that experience kind of similar to Jira, where you maybe have a backlog and you click an issue and it pops out a dialogue, and that dialogue has the detailed breakdown of all that information about that issue, but maybe the table just has a summary of it. So that's something that we'll be working on in the near future. The only other thing to go over then is how you actually get data into the table. And we're actually not going to go over that in detail right now because it heavily utilizes a capability that we're going to go over in the next video, which is a template function. So there are two ways to get data into a table. The first is what you see here, where we're basically just hard coding a list of objects into the table rows property. Now, this is useful for demonstration because it's easy to sort of see and you can see exactly what's going on. But in the real world, you're not going to be hard coding the rows into a table because that makes the table just static and it kind of defeats the purpose. What you'll actually be doing often is you'll be templating a list of data into the table rows property. That may be a data list, like one of the ones that you worked with in the previous video, or it might be something like fetching a list of Jira issues from your Jira instance, or fetching a list of related or child issues from the Jira issue that the table's being rendered on. If you want to say show a list of child issues or related issues, which are things that we have examples for. To do that, you need to be able to use our templating functionality. And to do that, you need to use what's called a template function, which is something we'll go over in the next video. The reason for that is that when you are templating values into the JSON here, it has to be valid JSON. And valid JSON means that the values here needs to be a string or a list. In order to allow you to make this dynamic, what we do is we get you to basically embed some very basic logic inside a string here. And again, we'll go over that in details in the next video to show you exactly how that works.